standard song, a la George Gershwin or Rodgers and Hart. I mean, well, it turned out I had Parkinson's disease, and of course with Parkinson's disease, there's nothing wrong with the muscle, but there's no phone lines between your brain and the muscle, so you can't get the message to work.
A cultural hero or a role model or anything like that. I don't want it to be the absolute last word in what the trendy style is.
I always say that I never sang any style of music that I hadn't heard in my household growing up. I can't approach it with any kind of authenticity.
To know Jim Morrison.
I don't think I got to know him. He was a very moody kind of a distant guy. I didn't want to get too close.
Think about this. The most respected woman in music quietly erased 7 men from her world. No duets, no reunions, no public call-outs, just silence. Why? Each one left a wound that fame couldn't heal. And yet, she never blasted them in tabloids or interviews. Only now, decades later, are the real reasons surfacing. The insults backstage, the humiliations on stage, the studio power plays, moments that shaped her voice and her reputation. Stay tuned, because these 7 names reveal not just her pain, but her power. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Number 1, Don Henley. Before the Eagles ever filled stadiums, Don Henley was simply a drummer in Linda Ronstadt's band. She gave him and Glenn Frey the platform to sharpen their sound, a stepping stone that shaped their future. At first, it was built on trust. Linda believed in his talent, and Henley benefited from her spotlight, traveling, recording, and gaining the experience that would carry him forward. But behind the scenes in 1975, that trust fractured. The story goes that Henley, by then flush with his own rising ambition, mocked her choices backstage. To Linda, it wasn't just a casual comment. It came across as contempt for her artistry, a dismissal from someone she'd once championed. And in that moment, she made a decision few women dared make in that male-dominated industry. She revoked his tour access, credentials gone, ties cut, all without fanfare. The move stunned people. Most artists of her stature avoided blunt confrontations, but Linda set a boundary. Henley went on to be painted as a fiercely ambitious figure, and often ungrateful for the hands that helped him up. Linda, on the other hand, walked away certain of one thing. When respect turned sour, loyalty no longer mattered. Number 2, Jim Morrison. It was 1968, a private gathering near the Whiskey A Go-Go, when Jim Morrison decided to make himself the center of attention. The Doors were already notorious for their chaos, and that night, Morrison, out of control and visibly drunk, spotted Linda Ronstadt in the crowd. Without asking, he pulled her on stage, turning what should have been a quiet party into a humiliating spectacle. In front of musicians, industry insiders, and friends, he leaned toward her, pressing for a kiss she never consented to. For Linda, it wasn't just embarrassing, it was a violation of space and respect. The worst part came later. Morrison mocked her on the radio, dismissing her as harmless forgettable. Those 2 words cut deeply, reducing her work to nothing, as if her presence in music was a passing curiosity. His tone reflected an era where women in the business were easy targets for ego-driven cruelty. Linda never responded publicly. She carried the memory instead, remembering how power could be abused so casually. To her, Morrison's actions weren't a joke, but a reminder that silence sometimes spoke louder than confrontation. That restraint became her shield, even when the scars stayed with her. Number 3, Neil Young. The Farm Workers. Benefit in 1976 was supposed to be a space for unity. Linda walked in expecting Neil Young to be an ally, someone who shared the same ideals about giving back and supporting voices that didn't always have a stage. Instead, what unfolded that night left her shaken. Backstage, she prepared to sing certain songs that fit the spirit of the cause. But, according to those who were there, Neil pushed back. He dismissed her set list and cut down her desire to perform certain tracks, brushing her off with the sharp claim that she wasn't built for protest. The words stung. In a room filled with peers, it wasn't just a disagreement about music, it was an attack on her authenticity. She had come earnestly, and being told she wasn't made for that space left her gutted. The night ended with her leaving in tears, a rare show of emotional defeat from someone usually unshaken in the spotlight. After that benefit, Linda never stood beside Neil on a stage again. The trust had broken, and she guarded that space fiercely moving forward. It was a reminder that not every supposed comrade is truly a peer worth standing next to. Number 4. Frank Zappa. In 1974, Linda Ronstadt agreed to a studio project that many expected would spark something groundbreaking. At the time, Frank Zappa was known for his eccentric genius, a true original who thrived on unpredictability. Pairing him with one of the most celebrated voices of the era seemed like a bold experiment, a meeting of two entirely different creative worlds. The thought alone carried a sense of possibility, as though Linda might lend warmth and accessibility to Zappa's boundary-pushing compositions. That possibility didn't last. Inside the sessions, Zappa cut the line between collaboration and criticism with an edge that stung. He sneered that turning his ideas over to her made the music sound like pop singer material. For Linda, who had built a reputation on depth and versatility, the insult wasn't just about genre. It was about reducing her artistry to something disposable. The tension made the air heavy, and rather than dig deeper into a fight she couldn't win, she stood up and walked away. Zappa's brilliance came with brutality, and for Linda, no amount of genius excused disrespect. Leaving made her point clear. She would not let her voice be treated as second class. Respect mattered more than prestige. Number 5. David Crosby. Laurel Canyon in the 70s was a haven for collaboration. Linda Ronstadt and David Crosby moved in the same circles, trading harmonies at parties and sharing the easy flow of ideas that defined the scene. It was a place where voices blended as naturally as neighbors borrowing sugar, and their connection seemed to carry that spirit of openness and trust. They both valued authenticity, and in those early years, it looked like a lasting creative bond. But by 1978, the mood shifted. During a vocal session, what should have been a simple discussion over a key change flared into something harsher. Crosby snapped, telling her, "You should learn to adapt." For Linda, the comment cut through the music. It sounded less like advice and more like dismissal, as though her instincts no longer carried weight. The dispute didn't stay private either. Soon after, he fed Rolling Stone a biting line, labeling her manufactured. From harmony partner to public critic, the change was sharp. She didn't strike back. She simply pulled away. Crosby's name disappeared from her inner circle, their creative link erased. The episode left her cautious, knowing even close ties could give way to ego when the pressure rose. Number 6. Elvis Costello. In 1979, Cleveland played host to one of Linda Ronstadt's headlining shows. She was already a certified star, able to fill large venues with her mix of rock and ballads. But outside that arena, the music world was shifting. Punk was on the rise, priding itself on tearing down the polished voices that defined the decade before. That tension between established icons and the next generation set the stage for what came next. Elvis Costello, riding the reputation of punk edge and biting commentary, didn't hold back. He dismissed Linda's set with a single jab, saying her music sounded like background music for brunch. It wasn't just a critique. It was a deliberate insult, taking her hard-earned presence and reducing it to wallpaper. When she confronted him backstage later, Hoping for clarity or even an apology, Costello, reportedly drunk, doubled down instead. For Linda, the moment confirmed that some of the so-called rebellion aimed its sharpest knives at women who had already carved out their place. It wasn't about a single remark, but about how younger voices used disdain to define themselves. She did not answer with anger. She simply crossed him off, making respect her unshakable line. Number 7. Paul Simon. In 1982, Paul Simon seemed like the perfect partner for Linda Ronstadt. Their voices, his sharp and lyrical, hers rich and soaring, looked like they could form one of those timeless duets that fans would replay for decades. On paper, it was a natural fit. In the studio, though, things did not unfold the way anyone expected. What started as collaboration quickly shifted into correction. Simon picked apart her phrasing word by word. He suggested rewrites, tweaked the lyrics, and treated her more like a student than an equal. For Linda, who was used to shaping music on her own instincts, the sessions felt suffocating. Instead of creating harmony, they ended up trapped in an imbalance of control. The track never saw the light of day. Unfinished and unreleased, it was abandoned mid-process, left behind as a failed experiment. Linda later described the experience as feeling like being scolded by a principal, a creative partnership recast as discipline. That impression never faded. She made her boundary clear by never returning to work with him again. For Linda, even the most promising match wasn't worth it when respect left the room. Walking away became her final word on Simon. Linda Ronstadt's refusals weren't casual grudges. Each name marked a boundary she set in order to survive an industry that often demanded silence from women. The insults, the dismissals, the moments of disrespect. She answered them not with public fights, but with distance. That wasn't weakness, it was a strategy. By choosing dignity over drama, she kept her artistry intact and her reputation free from endless feuds. She understood that standing tall sometimes meant standing apart. In the end, her greatest strength came not from outlasting every conflict, but from knowing the quiet power of walking away.